Hello, everyone. My name is Yassin Nacer. I'm the Open Education Librarian here at Utah State University. And the title of my presentation today is From Consumers to Creators, Assessment, Peer Review, and Reflection through OER-Enabled Pedagogy. All right, so to get started with our agenda, so we'll look at some of the learning objectives, some of the things that hopefully you'll be able to take away from this presentation. We'll look at some challenges to traditional assessment strategies, and then we'll look into what OER and open pedagogy are, and how they can help you improve your assessment strategies for your students. Then we'll look at some examples and then sort of the key takeaways from this presentation. And what will also be included is sort of a list of real projects that other instructors have used that sort of exemplify the approach that I'll be talking about. All right, so learning objectives. Number one, hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll be able to recognize key features of student-authored and student-collaborated OER projects that function as authentic assessments within various disciplinary contexts. You'll be able to understand how OER-enabled pedagogy or open pedagogy can support student agency, peer learning, and metacognitive reflection through renewable, public-facing assignments. And then lastly, you'll explore real-world examples of student-created OER in order to consider how similar models might be adopted to participants' disciplinary settings. All right, so some of the challenges of traditional assessment. So talking about traditional assessment, we mean things like multiple choice tests, essays, short answer tests, assignments, and tests like these. One of the main challenges is it positions students as consumers of knowledge rather than as creators of knowledge. It really sort of goes hand in hand with the banking model of education, the idea that students are fundamentally lacking, and the role of the educator is to sort of fill like an empty cup, with the knowledge that you as instructors have. Um, but it fails to treat students as potential creators of knowledge, as being able to contribute something to a scholarly discussion. Another challenge tends to be one size fits all. If you have a multiple choice test and you have somebody who is has a good deal of anxiety around test taking, and then you have somebody else who doesn't, uh, what you end up having is an inaccurate reflection of a person's a grasp of the material that's been covered in the course. And it really fails to account for the different ways that people are able to learn and share what they've learned with you as the instructor. Um, these traditional assessments also tend to promote surface learning. So thinking of things like rote memorization, the regurgitation of knowledge that they might have read from a textbook or from a course lecture. So it doesn't necessarily elicit or really develop metacognitive capacities among students. So it doesn't prompt students to really think about what exactly they know, how they know it. And it doesn't really prompt students to really think critically about how knowledge is created in the first place. And then finally, limited feedback opportunities. You give a student a test, they get a grade on it, and then that's sort of the end of the story. There isn't really a lot of opportunities for a student to sort of come back and improve or, work progressively on a particular project. All right. So counterposed to that traditional assessment, those are traditional assessment methods, is an idea called authentic assessment. And it's worth quoting this at length. I think it's a great definition of what authentic assessment is and what distinguishes it from traditional assessment. So authentic assessment The goal of authentic assessment is to evaluate a student's ability to demonstrate understanding of core learning objectives in a real-world context. Unlike traditional assessments, authentic assessment does not seek to measure rote learning and then require students to recall and restate the information. Instead, authentic assessment focuses on students' capacity to understand, analyze, and integrate instructional materials and apply that knowledge to real-world examples. Um, okay, so where does OER and open pedagogy come into all of this? Sort of the crux of my presentation. So first off, some definitions. OER or open educational resources. These are freely accessible teaching and learning materials that can be reused, revised, and shared at no cost. So not only do they save students money, but they're also constantly renewable. You can edit them, you can sort of remix them to fit the particular needs of your course. And something we'll talk about a little bit later is, excuse me, the degree to which students can become partial authors of these open educational resources. Um, and then open pedagogy just refers to a teaching approach that invites students to create, collaborate, and contribute knowledge rather than just consume it. So open pedagogy really sort of from the outset goes really hand in hand with authentic assessment. All right. So, what are some kinds of projects, some OER or OER-enabled projects, or examples of open pedagogy that really highlight authentic assessment and offer new, improved ways of assessing a student's learning? One of the most common methods, and one that I find particularly exciting, are student-authored textbook chapters. So this is an ever renewable assignment where students constantly are revising the textbooks that they've been using over the course of that semester. These are very exciting projects. I think students feel very empowered when they realize that they're actually contributing to a lasting project. It's not a disposable project. These are available for others to use indefinitely. Annotated resource guides. So this is a really great way of assessing a student's grasp of a particular, say, paper or material. Um, and it really helps students take ownership over their learning. Wikipedia editing projects are very fun, and another very public-facing type of project. And again, help students apply what they're learning in a very public-facing way that has sort of lasting impact that they can, take real pride in. Syllabus co-creation. This is where, say, in the first week or so of a course, you and your students sort of work together to create a syllabus. You may have a set of learning objectives and, a list of topics that need to be covered. But then how those are taught, how the course is arranged, those kinds of things are able to be developed in collaboration with students. And you can imagine that this would really help students feel, more empowered in their learning, and it would help students get the most out of the course material. And then finally, peer review assignments. So these are not at all uncommon already, but having other students help review the work of their fellow classmates. And it does a good job of modeling the kind of work that a scholar would be engaged in. It offers a lot of opportunity for feedback and improvement. Um, and it allows students to start thinking a little bit more about how knowledge is produced, how it is that they know what they know, um, and which is really goes hand in hand with authentic assessment. All right. And then, so how exactly do these types of projects, how does authentic assessment really fit in with these types of projects? How can these types of projects help develop authentic assessment strategies for you in your course? So open pedagogy, like the examples that I described, those were specifically examples of assignments. But open pedagogy invites students to create work that has value beyond the classroom. So these aren't disposable assignments where a student doesn't really have full ownership of the work because they feel like, I wrote this paper, it gets graded, and then it's sort of lost in the ether or whatever, it's gone. And similarly with tests and other types of assignments. Um, Furthermore, open pedagogy and OER help transition away from assessment that's focused on grading for correctness, and starts focusing on assessing creativity and critical thinking and the capacity for a student to contribute something to scholarly discussion. So again, this sort of gets into the, moving away from assessing a student's ability to memorize, in a history class, a list of dates or names, and really start feeling like they're making a contribution to knowledge. And then finally, or sorry, not finally, OER assignments are renewable, not disposable. So this sort of ties in with that. Open pedagogy invites students to create work that has value beyond the classroom. So these are really exciting because they persist. They don't sort of just go away at the end of this semester. And they really focus on helping students take ownership over the work that they do. And then finally, um, these types of assignments and open pedagogy more generally really encourage students to learn through the assignments rather than for the assignments. So it's a really great way of ensuring that the assignments and your assessment methods aren't sort of separate from the teaching element, right? You really want to have the assignments be an area for the student to actually continue learning. It's not just about saying, here's what I learned, but in the process of telling you what they learned, they're learning about scholarly communication and things like that. Excuse me. All right, so some key takeaways. Open pedagogy transforms students from consumers to creators, which deepens their engagement with your course material. OER-enabled assignments are renewable, public-facing, and can be more meaningful to students. They can have a greater sense of ownership over their work compared to traditional disposable assignments. Peer review and reflection activities provide built-in opportunities for metacognitive growth, right? That thinking about thinking, that ability to really question, how is it that I know what I know? And they offer more nuanced assessment for instructors. It's not that sort of one size fits all type of assessment that we talked about at the beginning. And then finally, authentic assessment through open pedagogy is all about emphasizing critical thinking, creativity, and real world relevance. Things that I think as instructors, we're all sort of interested in promoting for our students. All right. And then here, I will make sure that a copy of the slide deck is made available so that you are able to access these links. But these are examples of some really cool, well put together OER-enabled assignments or assignments that sort of work through open pedagogy. So we have on OER Commons, which is a major repository of open educational resources. There's an entire page of student co-authored resources, right? So things that students actually can, they made and they exist well beyond that particular course. We have some more information on what authentic assessment is and what that really means. Some more information on what OER are and what they can contribute to a student's education. And then finally, an example of a type of project that I found really, really cool. It's a student-edited open anthology of early American literature. So this is a collection of it's early American literature, so it's all in the public domain. And students have essentially picked and collected examples of literature from early America and have written um, introductory pieces for each of those works of literature, which is just a very fun assignment that I think students took a lot of ownership for, um, and offers really an opportunity for students to feel like they're contributing something to the scholarly conversation. All right. Well, thank you so much for attending this presentation. If you have any questions, if you're interested in learning more, if you're interested in doing anything with OER or open pedagogy, I highly recommend that you reach out to me at yassin.nacer@usu.edu, or you can reach me through the larger OER team at oer@usu.edu. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.